and is thinking about Stoicism, is thinking about the relation of Stoicism to Platonism, to Platonic philosophy. But he's also thinking about the different schools of Athenian philosophy. He's thinking about, in particular, the negotiation between Plato and Aristotle. And I think the best way, or a very good way to think about this book that we're reading, the Aeneids, is that it is an attempt to reconcile Platonic idealism with Aristotelian immanence. How are we to reconcile, to negotiate these two very different pictures of reality and metaphysics? What it means to be human, what it means for something to be real. Right? So Plato, as we know, says the forms are what is real, and Aristotle thinks forms are nothing without matter. Right? Forms can only exist through matter, and therefore reality is embodied being. Right? Physical being is more real than simply pure intellectual being. What Plotinus wants to do is, I think in particular, ask Aristotle the question, if reality is this combination, this specific combination of form and matter, how is the form effective? Where do we find the form in matter? And how does form govern? Right? How does form come into matter? And how does it affect matter once it's there? So, a little more history. We'll come back to this very important question. I want to get through this introduction first. The period of time that we're thinking about, 3rd century Rome, was a period of great tumult. It was toward the end of the Roman Empire. The sort of decisive sack of Rome is in 410, when the Visigoths come in and conquer Rome. But there had been invading hordes. There had been people coming in, these Germanic tribes coming from the north and taking shots at Rome and sort of corroding its power from the outside. That had been happening for at least 100 years prior to 410, and was a concern during Plotinus' time in the 3rd century. It was also a period of time where Rome was corroding from within. I'm not a scholar in ancient Rome, nor on history in general, but right, it's a well-known narrative that after Caesar in the 1st century BC, and for the next couple hundred years after that, we have Roman emperors who are basically just sort of watching Rome decline. And that's what we have in the 3rd century also. So Plotinus is coming into this scene, a scene of a great empire that is falling apart, corroding internally and also being attacked from the outside. It's clear that something is changing. There's an enormous sea change arriving. During this period, the other very important thing that is happening is that Christianity is gaining in popularity. Christianity in Rome was originally a minority religion, a persecuted religion, where Christians were fed to the lions at the Colosseum. But by the 3rd century, when Plotinus is writing, Christianity is gaining in popularity, and it's becoming increasingly debated by philosophers, and politicians. In 315 AD, we have the Edict of Milan, which declares that Roman territories and Rome itself would become a Christian state, right? Would become Christian thereafter. So this is, 315 is only, 45 years after Plotinus' death. So he's really right on the cusp of Christianity becoming mainstream and becoming the designated official religion of the Roman Empire. So this is all going on, but Rome is not yet Christian, and Plotinus is himself not a Christian, although he is very much thinking in terms of Christian ideas. He is, in particular, thinking about the connection between Platonic philosophy and some of Christian theology. Right, I said this several weeks ago, that Platonism becomes adopted by Christian theology. You see this in particular in Augustine. And Plotinus is really the first philosopher to package Platonism for consumption by Christians, to sort of rewrite it for a Christian mind. We see this particularly in his attitudes toward matter, toward the body, toward physicality, and his idea of what virtue is and the good is, where, to put it in a nutshell, the good, the human good, is sort of cleansing oneself of everything material and achieving what he calls purifaction, achieving a kind of purity of soul, a soul which is detached from and separate from the physical body. Now, Plotinus is thinking about Christianity, thinking about Plato and Aristotle, and he is, as I said, in particular interested in the question of the couplement, as he says, the couplement of form and matter, or as we have it here, more specifically in this text, he's thinking about the couplement of soul and body. Where is the soul? What is the soul? Aristotle says the soul is that which, right, gives us our telos, gives us our entelechy, is what directs us toward our self-realization, our own flourishing. So the soul is a kind of governing principle. It is about the individual's relation to time and unfolding its ability to achieve its own essence. And Plotinus is trying to figure out sort of precisely how this works.